Lagos, a big and busy city in Nigeria, hardly ever sleeps. Even when the moon shone, a different kind of activity started. You had people working night shifts, the last sounds of parties, and people quietly going about their business in the dark. It was during this quiet time that a strange person started showing up every night. People only knew him as Baba Ade, a blind beggar. It seemed like he just appeared out of nowhere exactly when the noise of the day died down. His eyes, which were white and couldn't see, looked like they were staring at something beyond what regular people could see. He would sit down on his old woven mat at the edge of the big Ojoda market, which was empty and messy at night. Next to him was a small basket full of bright, sweet-smelling oranges. Unlike other beggars who asked for money, Baba Ade never said a word. He just sat there quietly, his head slightly down, and the sweet smell of oranges filled the cool night air around him. People passing by, those coming home late, security guards, and people who liked the quiet of the night, would often stop because they were curious. Some, feeling sorry for him or just strangely interested, would drop some coins into his old wooden bowl and sometimes take an orange. The oranges themselves were amazing. They looked really bright under the streetlights. Their skin was smooth and perfect, and they smelled incredibly sweet. People who bought them said they tasted like sunshine, a burst of freshness in the late hours. But it wasn't just the oranges that made people notice Baba Ade. It was when he showed up, how he never spoke, and the mysterious feeling you got around him. Stories started going around. Was he really blind? Where did he come from? Why only oranges, and why only at midnight? Some people whispered that he was a spirit, a kind presence watching over the city while everyone slept. Others thought he was secretly running some kind of hidden business. Teenagers would dare each other to go up to him, but he would just sit there silently, and his silence felt like it had a deep meaning. One humid night, a young journalist named Kwame, who was known for being smart and a bit doubtful, became really curious about Baba Ade. He had heard all the stories, the crazy ideas, and his journalist senses told him there was a story there. He decided to watch the blind beggar one night, hoping to find out the truth. He hid and watched as people came up to Baba Ade, their interactions quick and silent. He saw them give coins and take oranges, the quick touches, the long looks. But Kwame couldn't find any normal explanation, no secret helpers, no pattern other than the nightly appearance and the silent exchange. The mystery just got bigger. Weeks turned into months, and Baba Ade became a strange, but accepted part of Lagos at night. He was always there in a city that was always changing. Then, something bad happened. A terrible sickness started spreading quickly and dangerously. At first, it seemed like a normal fever and cough. But soon, people would get a horrible rash all over their bodies and become so weak they couldn't get out of bed and could barely breathe. The famous hospitals in the city were soon full, and the once organized wards became chaotic with suffering. Doctors, who usually knew what to do, couldn't fight this new sickness. They worked day and night, their faces tired and worried. The busy markets became empty, the noisy streets quiet, and the happy music of Lagos was replaced by the sad cries of the sick and the worried whispers of those who were still healthy. Fear was everywhere in the once joyful city. One of the people fighting the sickness was a young doctor named Ekong. She had worked really hard to become a doctor because she truly wanted to help people. But this illness was different. They didn't know what it was, nothing seemed to work, and it spread incredibly fast. She spent many sleepless nights in the crowded hospital, and the faces of her sick patients, full of pain and fear, stayed with her even when she wasn't at work. One very sad evening, as the city was quiet with fear, Ekong was driving home, thinking about all the terrible things she had seen that day. As she drove past the familiar Ojoda market, a quick picture popped into her tired mind, the silent Baba Ade and his glowing oranges. She suddenly remembered a story her grandmother had told her about a blind man with healing fruits during an old sickness. Could it be related? It seemed crazy, like a desperate thought when everything else was failing. But she felt like she had to check it out. Ignoring how tired she was, Ekong turned her car around and went back to the market. It was very dark, and the only sound was the distant siren of an ambulance. And there, Under the dim light of a single working streetlight sat Baba Ade. His basket looked like it was glowing with a strange light and had more oranges than Ifiak had ever seen him have. Ifiak slowly walked up to him. The air around him felt different, heavy, and there was a faint, earthy smell mixed with the sweetness of the oranges. For the first time, she felt a strong need to talk to him. "Baba," she started softly, her voice barely a whisper in the quiet night. "These oranges, do they have something special about them? Can they heal?" The blind beggar didn't move, his eyes looking up at the dark sky. Ifiak started to lose hope. Maybe Kwame, the journalist who doubted everything, was right. Maybe Baba Ade was just a harmless but strange person who came out at night. But then, slowly, Baba Ade reached into his very full basket and picked out one perfect orange. He held out his hand, which was surprisingly steady, and offered it to Ifiak. She hesitated for a moment, then gently took the fruit. It felt strangely warm in her hand, like it was vibrating with a soft energy. As she held the orange, a voice, clear and strong, spoke not in her ears but in her mind. "The good things from the earth hold the answer. Grind the skin, mix it with the water that gathers before the sun comes up. Give it to those who are sick with a good heart." Ifiak stepped back, feeling a sudden chill. She looked around quickly, but no one else was there. Baba Ade was still sitting silently, his hand back in his lap. Had she imagined it? Was she starting to lose her mind from all the stress at work? But the clearness of the voice, how still the beggar was, and the strange warmth of the orange in her hand made her believe that something amazing had just happened. Holding the fruit tightly, as if it was very precious, Ifiak hurried back to the hospital. Driven by a tiny bit of hope, Ifiak found a bowl and a stick to grind things in at the hospital pharmacy. Her hands shaking with tiredness and excitement, she carefully ground the fragrant skin of the orange into a fine powder. Then, remembering an old story about how the water that forms on plants before sunrise can heal, she asked a young nurse to collect this early morning water from the plants on the hospital roof. She mixed the powdered orange skin with the early morning water, making a thin, shiny liquid. The other doctors and nurses watched, looking worried and unsure. Ifiak, who was usually very scientific, seemed to have turned to old folk tales because of the sickness. But since nothing else was working, they were willing to try anything. Ifiak carefully gave a small amount of the mixture to one of her patients who was very sick, a young mother who was barely breathing and covered in a terrible rash. The night went by slowly, everyone waiting anxiously. Then, as the first light of morning appeared in the sky, something amazing happened. The young mother's fever started to go down. She was breathing more easily, and the angry red rash started to fade. News of this unbelievable recovery spread quickly through the hospital. Hope, something they hadn't felt in days, appeared again. Following Ifiak's instructions, they made more of the remedy using the oranges she had gotten from Baba Ade. Slowly, miraculously, more patients started getting better. Their high fevers broke, their coughs eased, and the awful rash disappeared. As the word of these amazing recoveries reached the scared people of Lagos, a bit of hope spread through the city. People cautiously started leaving their homes, their faces showing a mix of relief and disbelief. The Ojota market, which had silently watched Baba Ade every night, became the center of the city's new hope. As evening came, a crowd gathered at the edge of the market, their eyes looking at the usual spot where the blind beggar always appeared. A strong feeling of anticipation filled the air, replacing the fear that had been there for so long. And right as the clock struck 12, he appeared, as if their hope had called him. His basket was overflowing with the now special oranges, their bright glow a sign of hope in the darkness. This time the feeling was different. There was no doubt, no fear, just a deep feeling of wonder and thankfulness. People came up to him not just out of curiosity or pity, but with respect. They offered him gifts, not just money, but nice clothes, food, and said heartfelt thank yous. Baba Ade, his eyes that couldn't see looking like they were focused on something far away, accepted their gifts with a quiet nod. His usual silence now felt like it had a deep and important meaning. Everyone wanted his amazing oranges. People waited in line, eager to get the fruit that had saved their city. Ifiak, now seen as a hero, stood nearby, gently explaining how to grind the peel and mix it with water. Her scientific mind was now open to the wisdom that existed beyond what she had learned in books. As Lagos slowly got better, the real story of Baba Ade started to become clear to everyone. The words African folktales and ancestor secrets, which people had used with some doubt before, now felt deeply true. Old people told stories of spiritual guardians who sometimes walked among them when things were really bad, their wisdom and power connected to the land itself. They talked about old remedies, about the healing power hidden in nature, which could only be found by those with good hearts and a connection to the spirits of their ancestors. It became obvious that Baba Ade's blindness wasn't a physical problem but a spiritual way of seeing, allowing him to feel the city's suffering deeply. His midnight visits weren't just a habit but a sacred act, an old tradition guided by the wisdom of the ancestors. The oranges weren't just fruit but powerful carriers of ancient healing, filled with the life of the land and the blessings of those who had lived before. One quiet night, after the city was completely healthy again and the sounds of happiness and business filled the air once more, Ifiak went up to Baba Ade. The market was busy and lively, but around the silent beggar, people kept a respectful distance. "Baba," she said softly, her voice full of thanks. "You saved us. You saved our city." Baba Ade turned his unseeing eyes towards her. This time, a soft smile seemed to appear on his lips, a quiet expression of peace and understanding. He reached into his basket and placed one perfect orange in Ifiak's open hand. As her fingers touched his rough skin, the familiar feeling of energy was stronger than ever, and she felt a deep connection and ancient wisdom. That night, as Ifiak held the orange, the voice came back, clearer and stronger than before. The ancestors never forget their children. Remember the old ways. Respect the earth and what it gives. True healing is not just about what you know, but about how you are connected. The next morning, Baba Ade was gone. His usual spot at the edge of Ojota Market was empty. No one saw him anywhere else in the city. It was like he had disappeared back into the world of stories and legends he had come from. The city was sad that he was gone, but their sadness was mixed with deep thankfulness and wonder. The story of the blind beggar who sold oranges at midnight, whose mysterious fruit had cured a deadly sickness, became a sacred story, a powerful reminder that their ancestors were always with them and that there was wisdom in their old traditions. The place where he used to sit became a place for quiet thought. People would leave gifts of fresh fruits and sweet-smelling flowers, a silent thank you to the mysterious guardian who had appeared when they needed him most, leaving the whole city speechless with his amazing gift. The words #African Folktales and #Ancestor Secrets now had a deep, personal meaning for the people of Lagos, forever linked to the memory of Baba Ade and his healing oranges. Ifiak, deeply changed by what had happened, dedicated her life to learning about how modern medicine and traditional healing could work together. She sought out old people, listened to their wisdom, and studied the healing powers of local plants, trying to understand the ancient knowledge that Baba Ade had shown. The story of the blind beggar became her guide, a reminder of the power of belief, the wisdom of tradition, and the lasting connection between people and the spiritual world. Lagos, forever marked by the silent miracle, never forgot the night the blind beggar sold oranges at midnight and left them speechless with the power of their ancestors.